And welcome, everyone. Happy Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. You are tuned in to Full Press Hockey. We don't have a name for the show yet, but we're going to get there. Mike Straw, Jim Behringer, Chris Wassel. Guys, free agency is fully underway, and there was a lot that happened over the past week that we're going to get into. But first, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. Summer, weather's been good. Been eating a lot. I know probably not as much as Chris, but Chris eats out. He eats everybody out under the table. So I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, guys. Let's be honest. Me being the habitual eater of the group, I'm not the person that sits there and makes a Weber grill into a smoker just because for fun. But I will say this. I do highly recommend, and since Jim, you're kind of somewhat in the area, go up to Fanwood, go up to the Railway Cafe, and order the Beast Burger once.
All right.
It's hot, spicy, and it's got butter in it. So At least you'll die happy.
Exactly. I like that.
But
hot, spicy
guys,
butter.
I will say this, guys. There is one horrible leak that we have to do for free agency. Have the Islanders signed anyone yet?
Nothing official.
Nothing official yet. I mean,
Lou is doing Lou things, and we'll get to that because that's
I had to say it once because this has become almost the ultimate unicorn, even for Lou.
I kind of love it. I love the mystery surrounding what's
going on.
There is
a part of me with this that kind of is like every day it goes by. I've talked to a number and a ridiculous amount of Islander reporters, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But I just got to say, I'm here for the chaos.
I'm here for the chaos too. I agree. I mean, Islanders. I mean, we'll get into it a little bit, but I mean, it's Lou. I mean, Chris, you and I both know what Lou does. He's not going to let anybody in on his secrets. He's just going to move stealthily and put the checkerboard and the chessboard together and get the guys that he wants and go from there because that's what Lou does.
But before we get into the Islanders, which we will, there's a lot to talk about what Lou and the Islanders are reported to be doing. We had a lot of deals happen from the start of free agency, even before. So let's just quickly recap some of the bigger names. Gabe Landeskog staying in Colorado, which Jim predicted on our show. Dougie Hamilton, which the two Devils guys here predicted went to the Devils. I'm going to toot my own horn for one I got right, and that was Brandon Saad to the Blues.
You know what? Congratulations.
That was good.
That was a good call. That's a good call for you.
I mean, to be fair, I will say this in the Devils' defense. They did have a better offer, but they were not going to go with that term.
Oh, no way. No. There's no way. But good for Saad getting what he wants. You had Matthew Perreault signing his RFA deal. You had Jaden Schwartz going to Seattle, which everybody expected.
Yeah.
You had some signings not everybody expected. You saw Brandon Montour stay in Florida. You saw Nick Foligno, who everybody thought was going to join his brother in Minnesota. And this is what we'll start with our reactions, because this is the first signing that made me go like, what? And it was Nick Foligno signing a 2-year, $7.6 million deal with the Boston Bruins, a $3.8 million cap hit for the former captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I know he's not the same player, but I felt he was going to get more than 3.8 with some of the silly money people were throwing around. So, Jim, we'll start with you. When that deal went down and you saw he was going to Boston of all places, what was your immediate reaction to that?
I mean, I thought he was really going to end up in Minnesota, like you said. But the Bruins, I mean, look, we know the Bruins are supposed to be the big bad Bruins. They like to be physical, big guys. Their depth and what they were built on when they made their runs in 2011, 13, and 19, especially that bottom six. They didn't really have that, to say the least, these last couple of years, outside of 2019 and their cup run, that fourth line, which carried them. But they signed Taylor Hall. They keep him around. They keep Mike Riley around. But Foligno, he adds a nice presence on that third line. Maybe they'll be able to shift somebody around in center to that second line center, obviously, because, David Krejci's going over to Czech Republic. I like the signing. It just gave me a head scratcher there for a minute, but his style of play fits what the Bruins like to do.
100%. It's that big bad Bruins mentality, even though, I mean, how can you be a big bad team in 2021 version of NHL hockey? We don't know, but that's his style, is the closest you're going to get, I think.
I agree 100%. Like you say, you look back on the guys that they had, like the Luciches back in 2011. Then you had that, like I said, that fourth line Wagner was on. They know how to use those guys in the right roles. He's not going to come on and play in the top six. There's no way. He'll be a middle to bottom six guy. And you know what? That's good for him, especially on 2 years. And, they still have some cap space to work with to bring in another player, maybe to fit into that second line center role, or they'll stay internally because they have to fill a void of David Krejci. And as much as Bruins fans want to get on him for his postseason performances a couple of years ago, that guy produced and was a great second line center for him, especially when Taylor Hall came over at the trade deadline.
What do you think, Chris?
This is going to be fun because Boston has a lot of options here that people may not realize. For one, they're far from done.
Now they do only have, it seems, about a projected cap space of $1 million.
But there is a player that they are looking to trade and have been looking to trade actively for, I would say, the last several months, and that is Jake DeBrusk. And they could still fetch decent value if they want to. Now, they don't have to. It's not necessary that they make a move like this, but it would not shock me if at some point, maybe not now, maybe they wait till closer to September to pull off something if they see a need. So they do have a little bit more in the option department than most people are giving them credit for. That's one thing. The other thing, I kind of almost feel sorry for Taylor Hall.
I don't.
I can't.
Me too.
I never fully will, and I have my reasons for it, and it's just something that you just don't.
I feel sorry for a guy who signed a 4-year, $24 million deal. Yeah, with a full no movement. Yeah, I feel sorry for him.
Hey, I didn't say I meant this like with a whole heavy heart. You
said you kind of do though, so I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed in you.
What else is new? That's going to happen a lot here.
This is true. This is true.
But let's be honest. Taylor Hall has that way of just like things go badly after a while. And you hope that isn't the case with Boston. Look at some of the moves Boston has made. Tuukka Rask could always end up on LTIR for the entire season.
He's a free agent, so
but
I don't think the NHL would allow them to sign a free agent and then put him right on LTIR. They also already didn't like the Phillip Grubauer deal, so there's no way they let that go through.
Over a measly $250,000. Wow, that's something.
I know, it's crazy. Just to think, and that was a signing that was kind of. I know we're still talking Boston, but that was kind of a signing that was a head scratcher to me because. You saw they drafted a decent pair with Chris Driedger and Vitek Vanacek, and then like all of a sudden you see Seattle just swoops in 6-year deal for Phillip Grubauer, and I'm like, oh, okay.
They must, to me, like Driedger and Grubauer probably are the two going into the season.
Well, yeah, because Vanacek shipped back to Washington after they traded him back after they drafted him in the
maybe that was the deal. Maybe that was the deal.
That could have been the side deal we never knew about.
Exactly.
You know what? If that's indeed the case, which it seems to be, you kind of have to tip your hat, especially to Washington, because that really wasn't much.
No.
They gave up, they got him back. And hey, look, you figure this out. What is it, guys? About $9.4 million in cap space between the two goalies now?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Seattle spent a little bit much, but I mean, a team like Boston had that for a while with obviously with Halak and Rask, and it seemed to work out just fine. Obviously, defensive structures aside and all that fun stuff, but that is the one thing that Boston still has that most teams don't. They do have that team defense structure that is ridiculous.
They're going to need it.
Well, they're going to need it more than ever.
They did go and sign, and we can stick with goaltending for a minute. Sign Linus Ullmark away from the Sabres, who The Sabres did offer Ullmark the same deal he signed in Boston. Like, it's not like they lowballed him. But when you get offered a job in a team for the same salary that you've been on, you've seen struggle, and they're going to struggle again mightily this year versus going to a team with a playoff pedigree in Boston, and you're coming in being told you're going to be the starter, because chances are, even if Tuukka comes back, he's not going to be ready for the season. He's not coming. There's no way. You'd be a fool not to take him up on that offer.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, this is a great move by Ullmark to go to Boston. And realistically, obviously you hear everybody says, Rats could still come back, this and that. To be honest, if it was only a 2-year deal, I'd be like, yeah, okay, you could come. But 4 years, that tells me I think the Bruins are ready to move on from Tuukka Rask.
And 4 years at $5 million per, if Ullmark can be what he showed flashes of for the Sabres last year behind that terrible defense, if he can be what he was behind the Sabres defense for what he is behind a markedly, I'd say like 5 to 10-fold better defense in Boston, that $5 million is going to be a steal of a lifetime for that organization.
Yeah, think about this for a second, guys. I know it's a small sample size, but he did manage to go over 500 in Buffalo for 3 straight seasons.
That's impressive.
That's got to be an accomplishment in of itself.
And it was a team that last year lost 18 straight games. I don't want to hear this winless in 18. No, you lost 18 straight.
You lost 18. Yeah, exactly.
Not only that, and I know people like the poo-poo save percentage, but he had a .917 save percentage on the Buffalo Sabres.
Yep.
I mean, his goals against was a 2.63 on a Buffalo Sabres team that gave up a bajillion scoring chances. It was one of the worst up until maybe the final month of the season on the penalty kill. Couldn't score anything at even strength except for the Sam Reinhart line.
Who's no longer
there, obviously.
Nope.
I mean, there's not a lot there. What is he going to re-sign there for the same money? They would have had to offer him at least a couple million more a year at that point. And I don't think he would even stayed anyway.
No, I don't think he was staying.
No, there is a chance if the market didn't fall the way it did, if Grubauer doesn't go to Seattle, and if certain deals don't happen, like there was a slim chance if there's no other number one spot clearly out there. But again, Boston's coming at telling you'll be their number one. You'll have to take it. And this year, like the offseason was a great offseason for goaltending. It's weird. Some decisions, like for the goalies getting paid at least, some decisions kind of made no sense to me, with Carolina trading for Bernier, letting him leave, then letting Mrazek leave to go to Toronto, only to sign Freddie Anderson for pretty much the same money. And call me crazy, and maybe I just don't know goaltending like I think I do. Mrazek at this point, I'd rather have in between the pipes than Freddie Anderson. And this is from somebody up here who saw Toronto play countless times because of where I live. They're just on. Why? What is like? I don't understand Carolina's goaltending decision process here.
Well, take it a step back even further before they even do that. They trade a Rookie of the Year nominee to Detroit in Nedeljkovic, who was supposed to be the future of that team.
Yeah, for
who signs
and Bernier.
Right. And he signs only a 2-year deal at $3 million AAV. I mean, that's nothing compared to what they gave to Anderson and Ranta. So you're telling me you couldn't keep that kid around? And not to mention Anderson and Ranta are really injury prone, especially Ranta. So, good for Mrazek. He's going up to Toronto.
He's going to be the number 2, clear cut. They clearly have faith in Jack Campbell, but if something happens and Jack Campbell has a falter or a little here, which you expect from a young goalie finally getting that run, you do have a guy Mrazek who's been there, done that, and can come in easily and bail you out if need be. So Toronto's goaltending situation, to me, a lot of people are weird on this, but to me, vastly improved. I'd take Mrazek over Anderson every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Definitely. I would do it. I would do that too. And And Bernier, look, New Jersey, nice backup goaltender for them, for Mackenzie Blackwood. I mean, what was his save percentage on a bad Detroit team? What, like 914? That's pretty good for.
It's another one of those cases where bad brutal team looked really good, kept them afloat. I mean, what was it? At one point during the year, he had all their wins but one.
Yeah, exactly.
Season too, so it wasn't like he fought. It was far from a slouch. And I can remember many nights where you're just sitting there going, Bernier had how many saves?
Yeah.
Really? I had to look twice. And when you're looking at goalies, and the first question, of course, I asked when Bernier signed in New Jersey, and I almost asked it in the press conference, but I didn't. I was like, you're not going to retire, are you?
Oh.
I mean, look, you get a little gun. And then the amusing quip, no sooner than I ask him, how do you think you're going to do in New Jersey? What's the first sandwich you're going to eat? Jokingly. And he started laughing. He's like, I can tell you this. It's the part that you don't hear in the Zoom press conference. He's like, well, I hear we're going to be doing the Dougie. And then he talks about Dougie Hamilton, how he's going to sign in New Jersey. And everybody's looking at each other on the Zoom press conference, like,
did he just wait? What?
Did he just break news here?
He just basically break it, because look, it was still not a deal that was completely done at that time. There was a lot of structural things that we found out later, obviously, that were being worked on with Dougie Hamilton's agents and such. But it was clear at that point, if they're telling another player that is signed, yeah, okay, yeah, it's pretty much done. And he's talking about it like it's going to imminently happen. Okay, that was different. I'm like, all right, I didn't expect that. I know Jonathan Bernier is pretty much a tongue-in-cheek guy,
but you don't expect him to say something like that on an intro press conference.
No
one, no media member ever. Anybody who's been in those conferences has never went, oh, I expect them to give away something. No. I expect the same 5 PR cliche responses to every question ever.
And even if you don't get the cliche answers, you usually get something. You get something similar to that effect anyway. And like we said, the important things that Bernier brings, simply brings stability. He brings a mentorship that, look, Mackenzie Blackwood really needs, along with a defensive coach that has a clue. Look. I'll be honest with everybody that's out there. There's still an elephant in that room. And it's part of the reason why certain players that left the Devils organization said what they said. It's not a secret. So that winning will cure some of that. But there's still a few things that need to obviously be done that we'll get to in a minute.
And we're going to wrap up goalie talk. One more move that we'll talk about. He was bought out by the Vancouver Canucks. That pairing failed miserably. And he ends up going to Dallas, and I'm talking about Braden Holtby. And the reason I wanted to save him for last is because we'll stick with Dallas and transition to another signing that we all basically predicted was going to happen with Ryan Suter, and Dallas giving him that fourth year. But Holtby signing in Dallas pretty much guarantees no Ben Bishop. Can Holtby have any sort of success behind that Stars defense this year?
I mean, he can. Depends if he even gets a chance to do it. I mean, Hudobin is the number one there, and Jake Ottinger's really cemented himself as the clear-cut number two.
I still can't view Hudobin as a number one anywhere. I don't know why I'd back up. He is the Ryan Fitzpatrick of the NHL in my mind, where he's there. He'll be the number one for a little bit, but he's ultimately going to be replaced.
I mean, he's just done his job so well, and he was the biggest reason why the Dallas Stars went to the Stanley Cup Final in 2020. I mean, he put that team on his back. I mean, some of the nights, the saves he was making, and he just goes in, does his role, and like no one thought he was going to be playing, and then all of a sudden Ben Bishop can't play, and then Hudobin's there, and they're on a run, and that's pretty much the story. And Jake Ottinger is not a bad, backup goaltender. It was a lot surprising to see Holtby there because, are there going to be taxi squads again? It's something I don't know about, that we're going to carry 3 goalies again, because the fit just doesn't make sense, because I thought Dallas was looking to keep the duo that they had, unless they just don't believe in Hudobin and they're just grooming Ottinger to be the guy down the road.
Yeah,
it's curious at best. And as far as I know, unless something dramatically changes, there will not be taxi squads this year.
well, obviously we don't know what's going on right now. Like
at least right now,
right?
Obviously,
I'm just still hoping that the season starts on time. That's what my mind is right now. We got 2 months, just over 2 months, which is nice. This nice short off season for us.
Yeah,
it's good for us.
I mean, we just got just over 2 months, 9 weeks or so, and then we got the regular season. Kyle Senra, wasn't there a 50 save Game 7 win in the Stars?
The as we like to call it, the year Dallas got the bounce as opposed to not getting the bounce.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear about Dallas and getting the bounce. All right.
Oh, come on. That's all I hear literally from Dallas.
I don't want to hear about it. Dallas, we didn't get out of here. It was karma for the garbage they pulled the year prior. That's what it was.
Oh.
All right. Do I go back to 99 and 2000?
2 years.
We're going back in time.
That was the only time I've ever cried for a sporting event. I was at that game with my dad. I was 9 years old.
Oh, jeez.
And I cried like as if my cat got ran over. And I don't even like cats, but I'd cry.
We have now hit into the deep trauma part of the free agency show.
Repressed childhood trauma is Game 6 of the 99 finals.
Oh, come on. For me, it was not. For me, it always will be is 94 Game 7 when frickin' Mark missed a clock Zelapukin across the head and Koharski's looking right at him.
Yep.
And
see, but
Lemaire
you guys got it.
Nothing.
Y'all got it eventually.
Oh, we
have
it.
Oh, we got it.
And to be perfectly honest, thanks to James Dolan coming to his senses, quote unquote, at least for everyone else.
He needs to go away, but that's another story.
And bringing in Chris Drury, we're now guaranteed that because, I'm going to say it right here. The Rangers do not make the playoffs this year.
Whoa.
Well, we're going to talk about that as we go through our off-season shows each Tuesday.
There's a reason. It's not.
We're going to talk about that because
nice tease.
We're going to tease for a future episode.
Yes.
I agree with Chris. And we're going to get that one when we preview that. When we do the division previews as we get closer, it's going to be a fun time full of really.
Yeah, there it is.
Wow, somebody pulled it. Even the classic.
You know what, guys? I don't want to hear it. This is garbage. This. I don't even have the words to describe what I'm feeling right now. But those lineups, Vaclav Rada. I do have a fun story. If you want to kill the sound of this, if you show this goal, I swear to God.
you know,
I know what's happening.
Know what happens?
Commercial. And add we not even
the lavender with the. Oh, nice.
Okay. We all know what happens.
I wonder what. Oh yeah, his foot in the crease.
But I like the spray and wipe. That was great. That's what I hope people get to see at some point. You know, it's like for the video portion of this.
Loose puck in the crease area. Still not covered up. It comes free and tipped here, and it never got through to Hasek. You're headed on the forehand.
Yo, what a great Dallas team.
Shut up.
I just want to. You know what? There is a part of me that sits there, like all kidding aside. This is a free agent show, but I would think, Mike, you'd be hurt more by 2007 and the staph infection in Jay McKee's equipment.
One that was 2006. Thank you.
I know. I just have to be smart.
2007 was the year the Sabres lost all franchise hope.
I know.
When, they let Drury and Briere walk out the door. You know what? Stop. This isn't like Mike Straw pull out all the traumatic moments from his hockey fandom day. What is this garbage? I don't need to see it.
It could be worse. We could pull out. Oh, he's just going all the way. Look,
he had to go all the way with it.
It's August. You have to have a sense of humor with it.
I don't have any sense of humor. Okay,
we gotta have some fun. But no, seriously, like, look, The rule was the rule back then, and the Devils got hosed on that rule a lot back in the day on that foot in the crease. But
look, I still
just remember you guys got your cup.
I still remember Scott Stevens almost ending a few referees' lives over that rule.
Yeah.
So, and Randy McKay said it to us once. He's like, yeah, you remember that Paul Stewart one against Florida where he disallowed a Stevens game-winning goal? I'm like, oh, the one where literally you and a Peluso and about 6 other Devils had to. They actually had to keep him locked in the Florida locker room after the game because he said, "I'm going to go get Stewart," end quote.
Yeah,
because that was blown. He's like, I'm normally not. He said it years after. He's like, normally I'm never like that, but there was just something that hit, and he said part of it had to do with the fact that the Devils had 2 goals like that disallowed earlier in the season, and he thought it might cost them a playoff spot.
I don't want to hear it. I'm moving. We're moving on.
Yeah,
we're moving on. Ryan
Moving
Suter,
on.
Dallas. You're nuts. You gave Ryan Suter his 4th year. That's basically my thought on that.
I mean,
why? Like, to me, no more than 2 years is what I would have signed him for. But to get that 4 years is just kind of, what are you doing?
Yeah,
we talked about it for quite a while during our free agency preview show.
It's almost like we're building a mystery. It's that bad. I mean, I get 2, I get maybe even 3 perhaps in the off chance, because look, they did lose one kind of vital member to their defense in Jimmy Oleksiak. I get that, but at the same time, Ryan Suter is not him either. He's basically an offensive defenseman who can still play a little bit of defense at 36. And even his offensive skills, you could argue, have diminished a good bit considering, I don't know. Does anybody remember the first 2 months of the season where Minnesota's power play was
not good?
Very good. And then he was off that unit, and then they got better.
Yep. I do.
I don't know. I'd rather have Goligoski, who they let walk, than Suter at this point.
Look,
he was a good fit.
Goligoski is a perfect fit too, because dementedly, this guy, when he's healthy, gets 35 points in a season like clockwork. I mean, even in Arizona, he managed to, which.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody putting those point totals up in Arizona, they're doing something right.
For what it's worth, Goligoski is not a bad defender. I know he can get a extremely bad rap.
But if I'm signing a Goligoski, it's not to be a great defender.
No, you're signing him to get steady power play points. And the funny part is, you look at some of his deeper numbers career-wise. I mean, other than ironically Arizona, but even in Dallas, he was rather good, except for the last couple seasons in Dallas was a train wreck for everybody. But I mean, there's some years in there, and in those last 2 years in Pittsburgh, where he was ridiculous defensively. Was he Nicholas Robinson ridiculous? No, nobody's going to be. But I mean, he had some double-digit expected goal differentials in there too, and even now, he would make enough of an impact that Dallas should have brought him back.
I agree.
I would have.
I definitely would have brought him back for sure. I like the way Goligoski plays. Suter, I agree with you, Chris. Like 2-3 years max. I mean, that defense is anchored by Klingberg and Heiskanen, and everybody knows it. And you're not going to replace Jamie Oleksiak, who was arguably one of the best defensemen that they had on the team outside of the 2 young studs, because he just let those 2 guys play their game to a T. He was the perfect defensive defenseman, and Seattle's getting a great defenseman in him. It's a shame that, Dallas couldn't keep him around. There was talk he was going to move at the deadline. Winnipeg was interested in him at the deadline, which was a shock that they didn't try to get him, because he would have vastly improved that defense.
Yep.
But good for him going to Seattle.
Yeah, Winnipeg did pursue him, Jim. but
Yeah.
they just didn't have they didn't have the term that Alexiak wanted, and Seattle did.
Yeah, but I mean, good for him going to Seattle. And Dallas said, look, Suter 4 years. I'm not loving the term. He can still be effective in the right situation. If he's playing like bottom pair minutes, he could probably play second pair if you need him to. But 4 years is way too long for him, especially at 36.
And before we get to our break, some other defensemen. We'll wrap up our defensive talk. We had Jake McCabe signing a 4-year deal in Chicago. Still don't know what the hell Chicago's doing. Chicago, we could spend an entire episode, and maybe that's our topic of next week.
Yeah.
What the hell is Chicago doing? Because I'm going to leave it at that, because we might just have to talk about that for a big chunk.
I think that's next week. I think Chicago's next week for sure.
Yeah, there's so many contracts that you just sit there and go, huh?
Yeah, we all know the big one that we go, huh? We talked about it the night it happened during NHL draft night. Tyson Barrie staying in Edmonton, 3 years, 13.5. Goligoski going to Minnesota on a 1-year deal. Hamonic, 2 years in Vancouver. Savard, 4 years in Montreal, which another one we all pointed to. Cody Ceci, again, another deal that Cody Ceci, 4 years, $13 million to Edmonton.
I will say this with Edmonton, the CC and Barry signings aren't as bad if they keep Adam Larson around.
But they didn't, obviously.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't see anyone signing Cody Ceci for more than especially at a 3.25 cap hit. It's not like 3.25 million is a lot, but that's more than I would personally ever pay him for seeing what he's been able to do the last couple years. Mike, I can tell you what Chicago's doing. Indulge us, because no one knows what Chicago is doing.
Bring us to the light, Michael.
Bring us to the mic. Bring us to the light, because they either are like really gonna go all in and try to make a playoff spot in this division, or just eat up contracts and fail miserably at being a tweener team.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see what Chicago is doing, but we'll see if he indulges us. But for now, we're going to step away for a quick moment. You are tuned into Full Press Coverage's live NHL Hockey Roundtable with Mike, Jim, and Chris.
Up into the corner. 10 seconds left to go. The countdown. Cleared up. Out of the zone. The Colorado Avalanche have won the Stanley Cup. Raymond Moore, a dream has come true.
And we are back. You are watching Full Press Coverage's Tuesday Night Hockey Talk. I don't know what we're going to call this yet. We're still throwing ideas. If you have ideas, let us know. Leave a comment. Let us know in the chat what you think this show of three guys who pretend to know more than what we really know talking hockey should be called. Mike Straw, Jim Behringer, Chris Wassel. So during our little break, Chris wants to give, with Mike Agello, some trash for the whole Buffalo-Toronto thing, and I take that personally. Born and raised in Buffalo, okay, but I grew up a Maple Leafs fan because of my dad, so I have this, like, love of both franchises, and I hate it. And I hate it so much. And Mike coming on the show would help me have some defense for it. He brought up Jake McCabe. We talked about it before we went to break. And I honestly, the know-it-alls, only I'm the
No.
Oh no, they're the
I
know-it-alls. I actually know what I'm talking about. They're they're evil.
I do like it, though. I do
No,
like it.
They're just evil people. But he did bring up a point on McCabe, who obviously him covering him in Buffalo. Me, I've seen him in Buffalo, covered him since he was drafted. Solid D, blew out his ACL late in the year last year. Definitely to me not worth the $4 million a year because of his health. That's my biggest thing. Because of his health and stability, like he's had shoulder injuries, leg injuries, upper and lower body, which we never found out at time. And it's just I'm just not sure Chicago, like, paying him that much is worth it. Good for him for getting the money, but
That was
moving
another head
on.
scratcher.
Yeah,
That's
and
a head
again,
scratcher. But like you said, last year, the shame of it is he got hurt last year because he was playing the best season, had his best season of his career with Buffalo. And it's a shame he got hurt because if he had continued that trajectory, it might have been more than 4, to be honest.
possibly, yeah. It's just the injuries, yeah. Moving on from defense to forward signings, we already talked. We talked Gabe Landeskog staying in Colorado. No one's really surprised.
Nope.
At the end of the day, I don't want to say I'm surprised, but I kind of was thinking as it kept going, the candle was going to be run out and he was going to end up elsewhere. But good for him and the Avs for getting it done. I'm happy to see them run it back again, keeping their captain in town. Jaden Schwartz to Seattle, which we all expected. Brandon Saad. $4.5 million cap hit at 5 years. That is a term I'm not, like, with the Blues. Like, I don't get, like, Tarasenko's likely out. I just don't get that kind of term for a player of his caliber, I guess. He's not going to come in and light up the scoreboard and replace what you're ultimately going to lose from Schwartz and Tarasenko not being in the fold anymore. So let's start with him. What are your thoughts on what Saad can contribute in St. Louis?
If you're looking for him to be like a top line guy, you then think again. He was best suited in Colorado because he was on that second line. And same thing when he was in Chicago. He's perfect for the second line. When he was in Columbus, they tried to make him a top line guy and he just couldn't do it. He's better off on that second line. And you know, you have Buchnevich there. They lost Hoffman. Obviously, he signed in Montreal. They were looking to keep him around, but they couldn't do it. Once they made the deal with Saad, you knew that Hoffman was leaving. Again, if they're paired together, him and Buchnevich, I think that's a pretty actually solid second line, to be honest. Maybe throw somebody else on there. But obviously, they're trying to move Tarasenko, got to move the money out to make it work and all. But again, I think that the term a little high, like Chris said earlier on, New Jersey definitely was in the mix with Saad, but they weren't going to go that high, and they were definitely not going to go that long for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jim. I mean, the term is more the problem here, not the amount. I mean, look, this guy is a 20 goal scorer. That's what he does. But the problem is, the fun part where if anybody looked at this last year and went, he shot what? 22.1%. I mean, it was insane last
It's
year.
not happening again.
I mean, it seemed like every other game he was scoring a goal, especially over like the last 20 games or so. And that's not going to happen in St. Louis with all due respect. And he only played 14 minutes a night in Colorado. So he is a little fresh. Let's be honest there. He didn't play all that much. You know, he played like those middle six muckraking minutes. And again, he can't play 18 to 19 minutes. He just can't. He's not that type of player. He's just not built that way. He's an annoying sort of little pest-like player that has a pretty good shot, gets into good position, and needs a catalyst with him. Maybe somebody that was signed today, or re-signed, I should say, in St. Louis.
And that would be Jordan
Kyrou.
Yeah. And he got RFA 2 years, 5.6 mil. Why do you think that?
Because at some point they're going to have to give this kid a top six role that he'll actually stick on. Either that, or he's going to like take Craig Brewer behind a woodshed. Because I mean, look, I'm all for giving a player a chance, but you don't keep yanking him back and forth like St. Louis has kind of done with its players. And look, Kyra's not the only one. Barbashev had the same thing happen to him the last 2 seasons, particularly last year, where it's like, okay, we're going to try you here, but no, we're going to yank you back. We're going to, and then we're going to, it drives people nuts, especially given the talent that St. Louis does have in this lineup, even without a Tarasenko. So you're bringing in Assad more for almost not just a goal scoring, but for a leadership role at this point that you clearly did not have with Tarasenko. Now, that isn't Tarasenko's fault. It's just one of those things where it went south, it got ugly, and you're trying to clean up the mess.
So let's move to 2 deals that, to me, were the biggest shocks, I guess, for one reason or another. We'll start in Edmonton. We all knew it was coming, but when it was made official, then the critiques really flew in. Zach Hyman, good player. 7 years at $5.5 million per year, 38.5 total. 7 years for Zach Hyman in Edmonton. There is no way, and he's going to start out likely on the line with Connor McDavid, but there's no way that deal is going to be looking good 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Nope.
If it is, I'll eat my words and I'll eat the biggest crow that I can think of, but I just don't see that deal ever panning out the way Edmonton wants it to pan out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't see it being good 3, 4 years down the road. They're looking for immediate success, and they're trying to win now. But the problem is Edmonton has a lot more problems than up front. And, yeah, Zach Hyman can go grind and get mucky in the corners and do all that stuff and make sure that the puck goes to Draisaitl and McDavid and, do what he does best, because that's what he did in Toronto for Matthews and Marner. And he's going to chip in 20 goals. Let's not kid ourselves here. His point totals are going to go up because he's playing with the best player in the world.
100%.
But Edmonton has more problems than up front. I mean, you signed Mike Smith to 2 years. I mean, you're going to rely on Mike Smith to get you back to the playoffs and win you a Stanley Cup. Nothing against Mike Smith, but he is a lot older now. Their defense is not the greatest. They brought in Duncan Keith, but again, you lost Adam Larson. Yeah, you get what's his face back on defense after after he lost the season last year. Oh, Clefbaum's back, so that's an upgrade there. But still, they gotta still find ways to put the puck in the net when McDavid and Draisaitl go cold.
To be fair, McDavid doesn't go cold.
Well, in the playoffs, he went cold, and that's when
he got chilly.
He got chilly.
Yeah, true. The other deal, Phillip Danault, 6 years, $33 million, another $5.5 million cap hit to LA. For me, that cap hit, I think he fits in better. We talked about him going to Vegas. That was one of the rumors. He fits in better in LA with his play style, but I still don't think he's worth the number that he was given. I think he might have been overpaid by $1 million or so, $1.5 million.
That's a distinct possibility. Although to be fair, LA is probably paying him in pizza anyway. So, I mean, the guy's love of pizza probably rivals my love of lasagna. But it's weird with Danault because when you were in Montreal, you got the distinct feeling that there is no way this player was even worth $4 million or even $4.5 million. He's a nice player. And somehow he's managed to finish in the top 10 of the Selke voting 3 straight years without at times really being all that good defensively even. It's kind of the product of his line more than anything else, guys. And it's weird and it's odd that, look, Montreal tried to set him up to be a more offensive player in every way, shape, and imaginable in his time in Montreal. And it just never worked out. No matter which players they put him with, it just didn't happen. And look, LA takes a shot at this. They're hoping to catch some kind of lightning in a bottle. What that is, I have no idea. Because to be honest, other than a short playoff run, in the last 3 years, this is the guy that the only thing I remember him for is scoring 2 goals and a shootout goal against the Devils like 5-6 years ago.
This is true. I mean, look, he got paid for what he did in the playoffs, but LA is so far away from being a playoff team, it's not even funny. And don't forget, he turned down a similar offer in Montreal the year before. What did he get? $500,000 more? That's about it, right?
Yeah, they had given him a $5 million offer as an extension to stay in Montreal.
And he turned it down. So, look, he's a nice player. He adds depth to that center position. They give him a veteran presence down the middle because the guys on the top line are not getting any younger. And he's going to be a nice mentor for the guys that they have in their system that are centers that are going to, like a Byfield. He can mentor him because I don't know if Byfield's ready to take the minutes that Danault's going to take, probably playing the second line.
True, but there's a goofball thing to all of this. Now, the year before, i.e. pre-bubble, Danault played almost 19 minutes a night. Last year, he played a hair less than 17. I'm just saying a little bit, guys, that maybe this isn't quite what it's cracked up to be for everyone involved. And could a Byfield come up and take the reins soon enough? Yeah, there's players in LA's system that could easily do what Danault is doing in a year or two.
Absolutely.
And surpass that. That's the entire problem with this deal. And you're giving him how many years?
Right.
That's where people have a problem with this. And even in a diluted Pacific Division, because that's what it is. It's the weakest division in hockey until they play. Because naturally, that's when everybody will prove everybody else wrong, and that's just how the NHL season works. But until then, Phillip Danault is probably just one of those signings that you just go, okay, they just wasted their money.
So let's move on. We've talked about some players that have signed as we get to start winding down. Let's talk about players that haven't signed. And there are a few big names, but rather than list some big names here, we'll start with you, Jim. Who's a player or two that you're surprised hasn't found a home yet? Now, we know the Islanders haven't done anything, right? But it's all likely that Palmieri, Zajac, and Parise are all going to the Island. So I'm not even counting them in my head on signings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, Jim, other than those, anybody linked to the Islanders right now, who's a player that you're surprised doesn't have a new home?
Thomas Tatar. I mean, that's a guy, realistically, let's be honest here, he could put the puck in the net, and I mean, somebody's not giving him a 1-year deal, 2 years maybe. I mean, look, New Jersey's probably has ties to him, but they're also in the Tarasenko mix, but they're concerned about his shoulder and can it be durable for 82 games? Yeah, I mean, he's still a 20-25 goal scorer, but Tatar is a nice cheap option someplace. That's a solid signing for somebody anywhere. I mean, Neil probably will come in on a PTO.
Yep.
Someplace, because it outside of that 1 year in Edmonton where he caught fire to begin the year, he's slowed down. Casey Cizikas is on that list, but he's probably going back to the island too. So that's 4 guys on this list that are going back to the island. So we don't have to worry about those guys. But yeah, I mean, Tatar to me is probably one of those guys that you think he should be going. He should have landed by now.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, here's the one for a leadership role, but he's probably, again, this is going to be one of those guys that probably has to come in on a PTO. And God, does Toronto try and kick the stinking tires on Tyler Bozak one more time? Is it on a PTO this time to replace Joe Thornton?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what he does or what they do.
Because look,
Bozak could be an interesting option, but
Bozak was not bad offensively on St. Louis last year when he was healthy. I mean, he could still play middle 6 minutes and get you a few points on the power play.
And when he was with Toronto, he was really good for them.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
I know.
And Tatar was the name that thought. While we're on the topic of Tatar, Kyle's does retire. He did have that outburst before the playoff game where he was angry he was playing. And I do think teams are holding that against him. I do think some are looking at they need to do their research and make sure he's not going to come in and be an issue. I don't think in a veteran team, a team that's ready to contend, he'd be an issue. But teams that are contending, I don't know if they have the space to sign him. And maybe he's not willing to take a 1-year deal. So he's holding out hope a trade happens that opens up space somewhere, or he's going to – I don't know what he's thinking. Like, I don't see him going to a team that's an upstart. I don't see him going to a team that's rebuilding. He's in a weird situation. So to avoid copying Jim on this one, they're the one player that I'm waiting to see someone pick for like a nice depth pickup is Eric Goodbranson. He like a bottom pairing defenseman at this point in his career. But he definitely would come in and solidify a defensive core any team that is trying to sign and make a run to the cup, to the Stanley Cup final. There are some teams, like if Bogosian didn't go back to Tampa, I would have said Tampa might have been a good fit for him. If maybe Dallas, but now with Suter, I don't know. Maybe if Martinez didn't go back to Vegas with Goodbranson, though, it's a lot of, well, if this guy didn't go here, maybe he fits there.
Yeah.
And it seems just spots are filling up for him that I could see. The one team that I know or I see that needs defensive help that could bring him in on a short one-term deal is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a team where I could see him fit and play a bottom pairing role, and Mike Sullivan get enough out of him to justify it. And if you're only signing for a year, you can justify it anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's happened before.
So
how about this one? How about this one? Real quick, Chris, it's a guy we're familiar with. How about a guy like Nikita Gusev?
He could fit somewhere. He really could. I could see it, especially in the right environment. I mean, he's got offensive talent. There's no question about that. And unlike another former Devils player that we all remember had quite a bit of offensive talent, but unfortunately had a temper of the match, none other than Nicholas Bergfors. He's not a locker room cancer by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, players got along with him in New Jersey, and they said as such. They kind of understood why he had to go. He just wasn't getting playing time, and he wasn't going to. So yeah. It wasn't anything acrimonious. And he would make sense somewhere. I mean, team that needs offensive push, especially a push on the power play. Is his skating very good? That's never going to be very good. You kind of just accept that and move on. So you're using him for a middle to bottom six role with a little bit of power play upside. And there's quite a few teams that could use that right now.
And we'll transition as we wrap up our show this week. We have some props to discuss, which are always fun. They were well received, the last ones from our partners at Pick Up Play. And we have our producer,
Ding, ding, ding.
Ian, back there. Will the Blackhawks make the playoffs in 2021-22? Both of you went, ooh. Chris, we're going to start with you. Will they make the playoffs with this hodgepodge of money spent?
In a word, no. They're not making the playoffs. As a matter of fact, I expect a season of much turmoil on and off the ice for the Chicago Blackhawks. And it will culminate in a trade of Marc-Andre Fleury to a contending team. As crazy as this sounds, because it's going to be one ugly. It could get ugly quickly. Oh, it already is. But all right, let's put it this way: on a scale of 1 to Mount Vesuvius, we're getting dangerously close to Mount Vesuvius.
Yeah, we are.
For the Blackhawks. And we still don't really know what they're doing. The identity is questionable. Nobody knows if why Jonathan Toews sat out a season, even though he says it was some kind of mysterious sort of ailment. There's teams ahead that are just going to be too much to overcome, basically.
Jim, what do you think?
I agree with Chris. They're not making the playoffs as much.
Not at all.
Not even. I mean, look, they have Marc-Andre Fleury, so they're going to be in games, but you just don't know what you're going to get from this team offensively. Is Toews 100% to come back? Is Kane going to be able to carry this team again? What are you going to get from everybody else? Is that defense good enough to keep them in games? It's a tough Central Division to begin with. I mean, the divisions are getting realigned, so Winnipeg's improved. So, they're already a top team. They're gonna have a tough in with Nashville, even though they lost some players. But it's a tough Central Division. I just don't see them making the playoffs.
Me neither. There's too much off the ice that I think is going to blow up and cause too many distractions, and rightfully so. I agree that Fleury probably plays elsewhere. Maybe that's the reason he agreed to come back, is because maybe they said, we'll try and move you towards the deadline if we're not in a position to contend. And he's like, all right, fine, one more last run, and it's probably to Pittsburgh. Let's be real.
Yeah, let's be real. But, I mean, look, even we forget to mention the guys that, did a lot of moves. Was Colorado with Gabe Landeskog. I mean, they're the class of that division until proven otherwise. So, if you want to put Colorado in, Winnipeg, then find a third team or find a fourth, two more teams to fill, because I just don't see Chicago making it.
Me neither. What do we have next for our props? Do we have anything else?
Anything else?
Or is that it? Do we just have the one depressing?
Wait. We get our favorite part of the show. Make it look like we know what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yes. Maybe the know-it-alls is a good show.
It is.
By the way, just
here we go.
Some fun.
Come on!
Nope.
Jugular. I love it.
I
absolutely love it.
Nope.
No.
They're not there yet. I don't trust the goaltending whatsoever.
Oh, that's the irony in this. I trust the goaltending.
So do I.
I don't trust the defensive coach. He's still there. That is the simplest. That is the biggest problem with New Jersey structurally as it stands. And I tell this story with a modicum of self-respect and self-restraint, because there's a lot more I could get into with this, and I just refuse to, because it's out of respect for being professional about it. I asked a simple question of the Devils assistant coach about defensive systems and could not get a straight answer. That is a major red flag. Last I checked, I never claimed to know everything about offense, defense, etc. When it comes to hockey. I'm asking the person because I want to learn something. I want to know what goes into a former player's head as he is a defensive coach. And this team, I've watched it so many times, and Jim probably saw my rants on Twitter about 300 million times.
Yep.
How do you not cover the same player on a penalty kill? I saw the back. I watched the Rangers game from the press box at the tail end of last season. And I watched 3 times the same player wide open sitting in front of a certain Devils goaltender. Moving along, backdoor play, bang, goal, bang, goal, bang, goal. I mean, and it wasn't like you should have some kind of adjustment or some.
No.
When you have players looking towards the bench and going, huh? That's a bad sign. And that's one reason. The other reason simply is the most obvious. They're still one of the youngest teams in the NHL. They're going to have a lot more growing pains along the way, guys. And we kind of have to just understand that. Are they going to be better? Yes. Are they going to surprise some people? Yes. Because COVID is not going to hopefully impact this team in the way that it did last season. It absolutely wrecked their entire season. They legitimately could not win at home.
No, they could not. They could not win at home.
And I do think that changes at least a little bit this year.
All right, we have time for one more.
Ooh.
Play pickup. Play the headlines, prop bet from our partners at Pick Up and Play.
Woo-hoo.
And we'll see, will the Flyers make the playoffs? We didn't touch on the Flyers today, and they'll be coming up in another episode soon when we have an entire offseason to get to a lot of teams, guys. But the Flyers, I'm going to say this is the year Carter Hart finds his stride as a number one, and I'm going to say this is the year they continue. They'll start strong and they continue that and not falter, and they will make it.
I'm going to say they're going to make the playoffs this year. And the simple fact is their defense improved. And they're not going to hopefully not be shocked by any sudden retirements before the season starts. But I like what they did. They bring in Keith Yandel off a buyout, sign him to a 1-year deal. The trade for Ristolainen makes them better. They have depth now at the position. I'm not sure on the backup goaltender, Martin Jones, but I think Carter Hart with a better defense in front of him is going to find his game again. And I like what they did bringing in Cam Atkinson. So I think the Flyers will get in. I think they'll be that surprise team that makes the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't see them being like a top 3 in their division, but I do think they're a wild card team.
Yes.
Oh boy. Man, I'm going to get in trouble for this, aren't I?
I mean, I'm already in trouble for it, so it doesn't matter.
Story of my life. They're not making the playoffs. They're just not. Look, Martin Jones, are you kidding me?
Well, that's the thing.
I mean,
that's why I believe it's Carter Hart. That's why I think Carter Hart steps up in a big way.
I don't think Carter Hart can play 60-plus games, and I think he's going to need to for them to make the playoffs. That is a huge problem right there. That's one. 2, the Flyers elected arbitration with Travis Sanheim. It wasn't the other way around. The Flyers did it. There is a way you treat your players, and with what was coming and going in this first week of free agency with Chuck Fletcher and company, it would make me feel a little uneasy right now if I was in Philadelphia. You let go. I understand you had to let go Jake Voracek. I get that. You bring in Cam Atkinson. Oh, by the way, Cam Atkinson can go colder than the ice flows.
No, he definitely can. Oh, no doubt he can.
That's the concern. And look, this is a team last year that went cold on the power play, which is unusual for Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a team that you typically talk perennially as a top 5 or top 10 power play team because of guys like, Claude Giroux, James Van Riemsdyk, like et cetera, can go on. And I still don't see that great improvement. All I see is Chuck Fletcher made a bunch of moves that he wasn't allowed to make when he was a GM of a certain team that he screwed up.
For good reason.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, I think he might have done a little too much here with Philadelphia, and that's
a blind nut finds a squirrel. Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yep.
Yeah, I do think they're improved, but to make the playoffs, I just can't say yes on it.
But that is where we're going to wrap up this week. There's a lot of time between now and the start of the 21-22 NHL season. Thank you for tuning in to Full Press Coverage's Tuesday Night Hockey coverage. Tuesday Night Hockey Talk, whatever we want to decide to call it. Next week, we are going to cover the mess that is the Chicago Blackhawks and whatever else happens between now and then. You can find us the same time each Tuesday, 8 p.m. on youtube.com, twitter.com, and Facebook. For Jim, I'm Chris. For Jim and Chris, I'm Mike Straw, and we are signing off. We'll talk to you